Jai Dren stood at the grand entrance of the Galactic Empire's capital, the cold metal doors looming before him like a silent judgment. He had been here before, but this time was different. His boots echoed in the empty corridor, the only sound accompanying him as he made his way to the High Council chambers. His mind was a storm of frustration, but his battle-hardened face remained stoic. The galaxy had seen many wars, but none like the one that was coming. He knew it. He could feel it in his bones. Inside the chamber, Emperor Tyron V sat upon his grand throne, an enormous structure of glimmering gold and chrome, flanked by towering holograms. The room smelled sterile, like everything in the Empire, cold, clean, devoid of life. Tyron V, a man who had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist for decades, raised an eyebrow as Jai approached. Surrounding him were his advisors, draped in fine robes and adorned with holographic insignias of their status. Jai stopped at the center of the room, locking eyes with the Emperor. He had come with a warning, one that would echo through the ages, but he knew it might fall on deaf ears. He had seen it too many times before. "Your Imperial Majesty," Jai began, his voice firm but burdened by the weight of experience. "I bring you a warning. Earth's soldiers are unlike anything you have faced before. They are not a threat you can afford to ignore." Tyron V's lips curled into a dismissive smile. "Earth," he sneered. "A planet of primitive, war-ravaged beings? What possible threat could they pose to the might of the Galactic Empire?" Jai's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand. The people of Earth are different. You've never encountered a species like them before. They are relentless, adaptable, and above all, they fight not for conquest, but for survival. They will do whatever it takes to protect their home, and that includes striking at you." The Emperor leaned back in his throne, arms crossed. "You're an old war dog, Dren. It's clear that your time in battle has clouded your judgment. Earth is no match for our military technology. We have crushed empires far greater than theirs. Do you truly believe they can stand against us?" One of the advisors, a tall woman with an air of authority, spoke up. "He's right, Jai. The Empire's weapons and fleets are vastly superior to anything Earth could muster. Their soldiers are bound by outdated tactics." Jai clenched his fists, his patience wearing thin. "This isn't about weapons. It's about their spirit, their will to fight. Your arrogance blinds you. I've seen their tactics, their evolution in combat. They will strike where you least expect it, and when they do, you won't be ready." Tyron V chuckled, shaking his head. "Enough. I've heard enough of your ramblings. You've been in too many battles to see reason. The Empire will continue its expansion, and Earth will be nothing more than a footnote in history." Jai's voice hardened. "You won't see it until it's too late. Earth's soldiers aren't just defending a planet, they're defending their very existence. They have faced extinction before and emerged stronger. If you underestimate them, it won't just be Earth you'll have to worry about, it will be every system under your rule." The tension in the chamber thickened. For a brief moment, Jai thought he saw a flicker of doubt in Tyron V's eyes, but the Emperor quickly dismissed it, his expression hardening once more. "Enough," the Emperor commanded. "Take him away. The council is done hearing this nonsense." Two guards stepped forward, but Jai didn't move. His gaze remained locked on the Emperor. He had delivered his warning. There was nothing more he could do. The arrogance of the Galactic Empire would be its downfall. As the guards approached, Jai spoke one last time, his voice quiet but resolute. "When the time comes, and it will come, you will regret not listening. Humanity's fight isn't over. It has only just begun." He turned and walked toward the exit. The doors parted before him, and for the briefest moment, he felt a strange sense of finality. He had done his duty. Now, the fate of the galaxy rested in the hands of those who refused to listen. Outside the cold walls of the palace, Jai exhaled a long, steady breath. His mission had failed, but his warning would not go unheard. If the Empire would not prepare for what was coming, then he would take the fight to them himself. Humanity's soldiers were not to be underestimated, And soon, the Empire would learn that truth in the worst possible way. The stars above the capital gleamed, distant and indifferent. But Jai knew that soon, Earth's fury would be unleashed upon the galaxy. And when it was, the Empire would wish they had heeded the warning of a single war veteran. The countdown had begun. Jai Dren sat in the dimly lit corner of a dusty, abandoned outpost on the edge of a dead moon. His fingers traced the worn surface of his datapad, flicking through intelligence reports and images. The room was silent save for the low hum of the base's failing generators and the distant thrum of a nearby rebel ship. He had hoped his warning would reach someone who could act, but now here he was, a rogue mercenary on the fringes of galactic space, far from the Empire's suffocating grip. The galaxy was changing. And Jai knew the time to act was fast approaching. The moment he had feared, the moment he had warned the Empire about, was drawing closer with every passing day. Earth's military was preparing. They were learning. And soon, they would strike. They were adapting. "Dren, you're needed," a voice crackled through the intercom. Jace stood up, slipping the datapad into his jacket as he walked toward the door. The weight of his decision pressed heavily upon him. He had left the Empire behind, cast aside his rank and title, yet now he was faced with the choice to lead once more. Whispers echoed throughout the galaxy's underworld, Earth's soldiers were becoming stronger by the day. If his instincts were right, and they always were, Earth would strike soon, leaving the Empire scrambling for survival. In the dimly lit corridors of the rebel base, Jace found his contact waiting, a man with sharp features, dark hair, and a rugged face. Halder, a former Imperial officer, had defected long ago. His eyes were always calculating, his movements precise, traits honed from surviving the chaos the Empire had left in its wake. "We've got a problem," Halder said, handing Jace a fresh set of encrypted files. "There's a growing faction on Earth. They've been studying Imperial tactics, building their forces in secret." Jace's gaze scanned the data, his brow furrowing. Earth's military had always been resilient, but this was different. They were evolving at an alarming rate, driven by the same desperation he had once witnessed in the trenches. Earth had nothing left to lose, and that made them dangerous. "Are they ready?" Jace asked, his voice low. The weight of what was about to happen settled on him. There was no turning back now. He had spent years warning the Empire, but no one had listened. If no one would act, then he would. Halder nodded. "They've cracked some of our encryption, studied our top-tier ship designs. They're close. If the Empire doesn't act soon, Earth will come for us." Jace exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. His instincts screamed a warning, a mix of fear and recognition. This was the beginning of something far worse than anyone could imagine. The Empire, so certain of its power, would soon fall victim to Earth's relentless advance. "We need a team," Jace muttered. "This isn't just about Earth's soldiers anymore. The Empire's complacency will be its downfall. We have to prepare the galaxy for a war it isn't ready for." Halder raised an eyebrow. "And you think the rebels can stop them?" "I'm not trying to stop them," Jace replied, his voice firm. "I'm trying to give us a fighting chance. We need to act first. We need to understand Earth's capabilities before they make their move." It was a gamble, a massive one. The Empire would never allow him to gather a force strong enough to counter Earth's advancements. But Jace wasn't concerned with the Empire anymore. He was concerned with survival. "Gather your people," Jace instructed. "We're infiltrating Imperial databases. We need to learn everything about Earth's new weapons and tactics. If they're as strong as we suspect, we'll need every advantage we can get." As Halder left to assemble the team, Jace remained still, staring at the flashing holographic map on the wall. Each data point marked a potential battlefield, each blinking red light a looming threat. He had once been part of that system, working alongside the Empire's top officials. He had witnessed their arrogance firsthand. But this wasn't about the Empire anymore. This was about the survival of the galaxy. The problem with underestimating Earth's soldiers was simple: they were unpredictable. Earth didn't fight by the Empire's rules. They fought dirty, not for honor, but for survival. Jace had seen it before. Their tactics weren't perfect, but they possessed something no other army in the galaxy did. Heart. Hours later, Jace stood at the edge of the rebel ship's command center, overlooking a group of new recruits. Among them were former soldiers, spies, and tacticians, each chosen for their unique expertise. They were the last line of defense, a ragtag force determined to fight back against the coming storm. He addressed them in a measured tone, the gravity of his words weighing heavily on the room. "We're going to war. Earth is coming. And they won't stop until they've taken everything. But we have one advantage: we know them. We understand their drive. We know how they think. And with that, we will strike first." He paused, scanning their faces. Fear lingered in some, but determination burned in their eyes. They weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting for a future. Jace would make sure they had one. "You've all seen the reports. Earth's forces are growing stronger every day. They've learned to adapt, and they will come for us. But we won't wait. We'll hit them first, where it hurts. No more waiting. No more hoping the Empire will step in." He turned to Halder, signaling him to bring up the next set of intelligence. "We strike fast. We strike hard. And we make sure Earth understands one thing: they are not alone in this fight." As the team dispersed to prepare, Jace stood alone, staring into the cold expanse of space. The Empire had ignored him for too long. But now, he had no choice but to lead this rebellion. Earth's soldiers were coming. And this time, the galaxy would learn the hard way. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The warning had come too late. Jace stood on the bridge of the rebel flagship, watching as red lights blinked across the massive galactic map hovering before him. Each one marked a new threat, a new danger, in the growing shadow of Earth's military power. His hands clenched as his mind raced. He had known this day would come, but no amount of preparation could have readied him for the reality of it. The Empire's arrogance, its blind confidence, had sealed its fate. "We're picking up Earth fleet movements," Pa's voice broke through the tense silence. "They've mobilized. And they're not coming for just one system, they're taking the whole quadrant." Jace's heart pounded. Earth had finally made its move. The galaxy was about to witness just how dangerous they could be. There was no more time for hesitation. The moment of reckoning had arrived. "What's the status of our counteroffensive?" Jace asked, his voice steady despite the tension thick in the air. Halder turned, his expression grim. "We're in position, but they're moving faster than expected. We won't get a clean strike without heavy casualties." Jace didn't flinch. He had planned for this. The Empire's mistake had never been its lack of strength, it had been its arrogance. They had dismissed Earth's soldiers as primitive, weak, unorganized. They had been wrong. We hit them hard. No delays. No mercy. The bridge hummed with energy as the rebel fleet prepared for battle. Engines roared to life, weapon systems activated, and ships moved into formation. Jace thought back to the first time he had warned the Empire about Earth's soldiers. They had laughed. They had mocked him. Now, they would see just how wrong they had been. And when they did, it would be too late. "Commander Dren, our scouts report that the first wave of Earth's forces is entering the system," a communications officer reported. "They're positioning themselves around the central star." Jace's jaw tightened. The war had begun. They were preparing for a siege. Jace's face hardened, it wasn't a surprise. Earth's military had always been methodical, planning several steps ahead. But this was no longer about strategy, this was about survival. "Deploy our forces," Jace commanded, his voice firm. "We make our stand now. It's either them or us." As the rebel fleet surged toward the front lines, Jace stood at the helm, the weight of leadership pressing heavily on his shoulders. The stakes had never been higher. The galaxy teetered on the brink of destruction, and Earth's forces had come to claim their dominance. But Jace wasn't going to let them succeed without a fight. Not when there was still a chance to turn the tide. In the cold vacuum of space, the battle ignited. Explosions ripped through the void as the rebel fleet clashed with Earth's armada, the very stars seeming to tremble under the sheer force of the conflict. Jace's ship weaved through the chaos, dodging enemy fire with practiced precision as his tactical officers coordinated strikes with deadly accuracy. The Empire's defenses had failed, and now Earth's military was demonstrating what it meant to fight for survival. Jace's fingers danced over the controls, his mind sharp and calculated. A lifetime of warfare had prepared him for this moment. There would be no second chances. Concentrate all fire on their command ship, he ordered, eyes locked on the looming Earth warship. Its massive, ominous hull glinted in the darkness, built to withstand the worst. But Jace knew they had to neutralize it quickly if they had any hope of victory. The rebel fleet pressed forward, weapons blazing. The Earth warship retaliated with immense firepower, but it was too late. Jace's forces hammered it relentlessly, pinning it down amidst the battlefield. The deafening roar of exploding debris filled the comms, a stark reminder of the brutal fight. Target locked, a voice from the weapons station announced. Firing now. A streak of energy cut through the black void, striking the Earth warship with devastating force. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then, the ship erupted in a cascade of fiery explosions, its structure collapsing into itself. The rebel fleet had delivered the first critical blow. Jace observed the destruction unfold but allowed himself no relief. This was only the beginning. Earth's military was formidable, and the real battle had yet to come. Meanwhile, on the capital world of the Galactic Empire, the Emperor sat in his command chamber, watching the battle unfold through live transmissions. His face, usually composed and unreadable, was tight with worry. He had been receiving reports of Earth's growing strength for months, dismissing them with unwavering confidence in the Empire's superiority. Now, he saw the cost of his arrogance. A holographic transmission flickered to life before him, revealing Jace Dren's stern face, a grim reminder of the warnings he had ignored. "You fool," Emperor Tyron Var muttered under his breath. "You were right all along." But it was too late for regret. The Empire was at war, and it was losing. Once deemed invincible, its fleets were crumbling against Earth's relentless assault. The Emperor had failed to grasp what Jace had understood from the beginning: Earth's soldiers were unlike any other. They fought with a tenacity and ingenuity that no other species could rival. The distant echoes of battle filled the chamber, but Tyron Var barely heard them. His empire was unraveling, and all he could do now was brace for its inevitable collapse. Back in space, the battle raged on. Jace's fleet had suffered losses, but their decisive strike had shaken Earth's forces. Yet, as the hours passed, the true challenge was only beginning. It became evident that Earth was not retreating, they were regrouping. This time, they had more than just sheer numbers on their side. Earth's soldiers had learned from the mistakes of their initial assault, returning stronger, more disciplined, and more determined. The battle for the galaxy was no longer about mere victory, it was a fight for survival. "Prepare for the final push," Jace said to his officers, his voice steady but firm. "This is our last chance. If we fail, the galaxy falls." His words carried a heavy weight, but there was no room for hesitation. Earth's reckoning had come, and the Empire would either rise from the ashes or be consumed by them. The battlefield had become a symphony of destruction. For hours, the rebel fleet and Earth's forces clashed, their weapons illuminating the void of space like dying stars. The once mighty capital of the Galactic Empire lay in ruins, debris littering every corner of the sky. The Empire's warships, once symbols of dominance, had been reduced to little more than drifting wreckage. Jace Dren stood on the command deck of the rebel flagship, his eyes locked on the holographic display of the battlefield. His face was drawn, hardened by war. He had tried to warn the Empire. He had pleaded for a different path. But their arrogance had doomed them all. Now, it was a race against time to finish what had begun. "Enemy ships are retreating," came the voice of his fleet commander, Lynn, breaking the tense silence. She stood by the weapons console, her gaze fixed on the readouts. Jace frowned. Retreating? That didn't align with Earth's tactics. Earth's forces never simply withdrew, they adapted, they endured, they found ways to turn the tide. No, this wasn't a retreat. It was a maneuver. Zooming in on the coordinates where Earth's ships had pulled back, realization struck him like a lightning bolt. They're repositioning. They're setting a trap. Lynn met his eyes. You think they're planning another assault? Jace exhaled sharply. They've been studying us. Learning from us. And now they know exactly how to dismantle us. They're going to lure us in and strike from all sides. For centuries, the Empire had dictated the rules of war. But Earth refused to play by them. Now, it was the rebels, once the great challengers of imperial rule, who faced the risk of annihilation. Move the fleet into defensive positions, Jace ordered. We need to be ready for their next move. As his officers scrambled to carry out his command, he stepped away, his mind racing. The battle was no longer just about survival, it was about the future. The Empire was crumbling, its control slipping through its fingers. The arrogance of its leaders had sealed its fate. Now, the galaxy teetered on the edge of a new era, one that could bring either peace or further destruction. Across the galaxy, within the Empire's once glorious throne room, Emperor Tyron Var sat motionless, his face a mask of frustration and despair. His once unshakable rule was crumbling before his eyes. His fleet was decimated, his armies scattered. But the true nightmare was not the rebels, it was Earth. Your Majesty, an advisor spoke hesitantly, bowing low. The rebel fleet is engaging Earth's forces directly. We've lost control of key sectors. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. The Emperor's gaze remained fixed on the vastness of space beyond the viewport, his world unraveling before him. Reports flooded in, each more catastrophic than the last. Earth, once dismissed as an insignificant world, had risen as an unstoppable force, bringing the Empire to its knees. I should have listened to Dren, Tyron muttered, bitterness lacing his words. He had scoffed at Jace's warnings, convinced of the Empire's superiority. Now, that arrogance had led to ruin. His fleets were in shambles, his empire collapsing, and Earth's soldiers were pressing forward without mercy. Humanity had adapted at an impossible rate, surpassing even the wildest expectations. Now, they stood poised to claim the galaxy. Back in the heart of the battle, the rebel fleet had shifted into defensive formations, but the moment of reckoning had arrived. The command center was thick with tension as Jace watched Earth's forces maneuver with precision. A voice crackled through the comms. Jace, we've detected a large concentration of Earth's ships on our perimeter. They're flanking us. The trap had been sprung. Jace clenched his jaw. Engaging Earth's forces without the advantage of surprise was a death sentence. But there was no alternative. He had always known that Earth's warriors fought with an unmatched ferocity, but now they had become something even more dangerous, unstoppable. Move out. Engage them head-on. Jace commanded, his voice unwavering. The rebel fleet surged forward, weapons primed. But Jace knew the truth, the power balance had shifted. Earth was no longer the underdog. They were the masters of the battlefield now. Commander Dren, Lynn called out, her voice tinged with concern. We've lost contact with the Southern Fleet. We're being surrounded. Panic clawed at the edges of Jace's mind. If they were encircled, they wouldn't stand a chance. But there was no time to retreat. This was it. The final battle. We make our stand here. Jace declared. All ships, hold your ground. Give everything you've got. The rebel fleet unleashed a storm of firepower, turning space into a maelstrom of light and destruction. Jace gripped the controls, his entire being focused on the battle. There was no room for hesitation. The Empire's downfall had been inevitable. But Earth's rise, its sheer dominance, was something Jace had never fully grasped until now. There would be no traditional victors in this war. The galaxy lay in ruins, its once mighty powers shattered. The Emperor, too proud to acknowledge his failure, had vanished into the unknown, leaving his empire to rot. Though Earth's forces had triumphed, they now faced an even greater challenge, rebuilding a galaxy devastated by arrogance, underestimation, and complacency. As Jace watched the last remnants of the Empire burn, he understood one thing with absolute certainty. The true battle had only just begun. The galaxy would never be the same again. But one fact remained undeniable. Humanity had proven itself. And they would never be ignored again. It became clear that Earth was not retreating, they were only regrouping. And this time they had more than just numbers on their side. Earth soldiers had learned from their first wave's mistake. And they were coming back stronger, more focused and more determined to win. The battle for the galaxy was no longer about victory, it was about survival. Get ready for the final push, Jay said to his officers, his voice low but resolute. This is our last chance. If we don't win this fight, the galaxy will fall. His words were heavy, but there was no room for doubt now. Earth's reckoning had come, and the Empire would arise from the ashes, or it would burn with them. The battle had become a symphony of destruction. For hours the rebel fleet and Earth's military had clashed their weapons, lighting up the expanse of space like stars gone supernova. The once glorious capital of the Galactic Empire now appeared in shambles, every corner of the sky filled with debris and wreckage. The Empire's ships, once symbols of invincibility, had been reduced to broken fragments scattered across the battlefield. Dren stood on the command deck of the rebel flagship, his gaze fixed on the holographic map of the battlefield. His face was gone, hardened by the brutality of the conflict. He had warned the Empire. He had tried to prevent this, but the Empire's refusal to listen had doomed them all. Now it was a race against time to finish what had begun. Enemy ships are retreating. The voice of his fleet Commander Lin echoed in the tense silence. She stood at the weapon station, her eyes glued to the readout. Retreating. Jace's voice was skeptical. It didn't make sense. Earth's soldiers didn't retreat, they adapted. They fought with every ounce of their being, even when the odds were stacked against them. No, this wasn't retreat, it was a strategy. And if Jay had learned anything over the years, it was that Earth's military played a long game. He leaned over the map, zooming in on the coordinates where Earth's forces had pulled back. There, repositioning. They're not done. Lin met his eyes. You think they're going for another strike? They're setting a trap, Jay said, his voice laced with a bitter edge. They'll lure us and then hit us from all sides. They've learned, they've been studying our tactics, our weaknesses. The sudden realization hit him like a punch to the gut. Earth's military was unpredictable, a force that didn't fight by the rules the Empire had used for centuries. The tables had turned, and now it was the rebels, not the Empire, who are in danger of being overwhelmed. Get the fleet into defensive positions, Jace ordered. We need to prepare for their next move. As his officers scrambled to execute his orders, Jay stepped away from the command center, his mind racing. It wasn't just Earth's forces he had to worry about now, it was the inevitable collapse of the Empire that was consuming him. The power, the control they had once held gone. The Emperor's blindness had sealed their fate, and now the galaxy was on the brink of a new era. But Jace wasn't sure whether it would be an era of peace or destruction. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Emperor was sitting in his throne room, his once proud face now a mask of frustration and desperation. The Empire had crumbled around him, and all his assurances of invincibility had evaporated like smoke. His fleet was shattered, his military scattered, but the worst part was that the rebels had gained ground, and Earth was rising. Their majesty An advisor began bowing low as he entered the room. The rebel fleet has engaged Earth's forces directly. It's becoming more than we can handle. We've lost contact with the defense outposts. In Sector 5 it's all falling apart. Tyrant Var's gaze never left the view screen before him. He stared out at the vast expanse of space, his empire's once great capital, now a distant memory of what it had been. The reports were coming in too fast. Too much was collapsing at once. Earth was no longer a speck of dust to be ignored. They were an unstoppable force, and they had brought the empire to its knees. I should have listened, the emperor muttered under his breath. I should have listened to Dren. It was a bitter admission. Tyran Var had scoffed at Jason's warnings, confident in the empire's superiority. Now his empire was on the brink of collapse, his fleet in tatters, and Earth soldiers were showing no sign of backing down. They had adapted faster than anyone could have anticipated, and now they were poised to take the galaxy back. In space the rebel fleet had taken up defensive positions, but it was clear that they were running out of time. The tension in the command center was palpable as Jay stood at the helm, watching the ships reposition. He didn't need to be a military strategist to know that the real threat was closing in fast. A voice crackled through the comms. Jace, we've detected a large concentration of Earth ships on our perimeter. They're flanking us. The trap had been set. The last thing Jace wanted was to engage Earth's forces hidden without the advantage of surprise, but there was no other choice. He had always known that Earth's forces fought with an intensity that no other species could match, but now their resilience had reached terrifying new heights. Move out. We engaged them head on. Jace ordered, his voice sharp. The rebel fleet surged forward, weapons ready, but there was no denying that the tables had turned. Earth was no longer the underdog. They were the masters of this fight. Commander Drenlin said, her voice filled with concern. We've lost contact with the southern fleet. We're going to be surrounded. Jace's mind raced. They couldn't afford to be surrounded. If they were, it would be over. They would be crushed under the weight of Earth's strategy. But there was no time to fall back. This was it, the final battle. We make our stand here. Jay said, all ships hold you ground. We give everything we've got. The Empire may have fallen, but we'll go down fighting. The rebel fleet opened fire, and the vacuum of space became a maelstrom of light, explosions, and chaos. Jason's hands gripped the controls tightly, his thoughts focused entirely on the battle at hand. There was no room for hesitation. The Empire's fall had been inevitable, but humanity's rise was something Jay hadn't fully understood until now. Earth soldiers were more than a threat. They were the future. In the end there would be no victors in the traditional sense. The galaxy was left in ruins. Its once great powers shattered. The Emperor, too proud to admit his failures, had fled into the unknown, leaving his empire's remnants to rot. First soldiers, though victorious, now faced the daunting task of rebuilding a galaxy that had been torn apart by arrogance, underestimation, and complacency. And as Dren watched the last remnants of the Empire burn, he realized that the true battle had only just begun. The galaxy would never be the same again, but one thing was certain. Humanity had proven itself to be a force that could not and would not be ignored.